Hi and welcome to the DP-008 special notes section of this DVD. Now in late 2009, Tascam added a new multi-track recorder to their catalogue, which is very similar to the very popular DP-004, and because there is significant overlap between the two models, the existing footage on this DVD that was shot on the older DP-004 is perfectly suited for the new DP-008. There are several differences between the two models which may come up from time to time. So a graphic like this one will come up on the screen referring you to this video that you're watching, in which we explain the differences between the two models. Okay, so what are the differences between them? Obviously, the major difference is that we now have 8 tracks rather than 4, which is in the DP-004. In any section of the original footage where we say 4 tracks, just know obviously that if you have a DP-008, you have 8 tracks. We also have some significant changes in the mixer section with the addition of the reverb and EQ, which are applied, in the case of the reverb, to these dedicated reverb send knobs on the front panel. And any tweaking of these particular effects is done underneath these dedicated buttons here. So say we wanted to add some reverb to some of these tracks. I'm going to actually show a new feature on the DP-008. Which is the mute function. If we press both of these down here, then if we play this demo, any of these record arm buttons will end up muting any of these tracks. So we could go through here and mute everything but say this track here. I can add some reverb to that. Bring this back here. So obviously you could have varying amounts of reverb for each of these tracks just using these dedicated reverb send knobs. If you want to change the reverb settings, press the dedicated reverb button here and you can choose between 6 different reverb types and then go across to 2 settings here, which gives you a reverb time and also the level of that reverb. That will be the master level of the reverb rather than the individual sends that come across for each track. Same thing down here with EQ. We can turn that on or off for each of the 8 tracks. And if you turn that on, then we can scroll down here and we can either boost or cut the high end or the treble. And we can do the same thing if we go down here to the bass or the low end. We can boost that or reduce that. But unlike some simpler EQs that you might find on other units, these are not fixed EQ points. If I was to scroll up, you can see that I can sweep the high EQ here all the way from 1.7 kilohertz all the way up to 18K. And we can do the same thing if we go down here to the low one. We can go all the way down from 32 hertz up to 1.6 kilohertz. So a favorite setting of mine would probably be around, say, 100. And if I was to go up here and then maybe around, say, 10 or say 10K or something like that. So with those being set, then you can move down here and you can either boost around that frequency point or that frequency point. If you place them to the 12 o'clock position, you're not boosting or cutting. So these settings here are really for the playback of the tracks. To EQ your inputs, then press Input Settings. This is where you assign the physical inputs on the back here to the inputs A and B. And if you select the second button here named EQ, here's where you can turn this on for your inputs. And then any changes you make here will be applied to your inputs and be printed onto your tracks. I would be a little careful about this because if you go back here to the EQ right here, you notice that you can turn these on or off. And this is on the playback of these tracks. So it's kind of a non-destructive EQ because if you go crazy with the EQ right here, you can always just turn it off. However, back here in the input settings and the second tab here, if you turn this on here, then any changes you make here will be printed on the track and you can't really get rid of them unless you turn it back off again and then re-record your track. So don't go hog wild with EQ on this input, although it's very handy to have it right here. Now we have the track mute thing that we saw a little bit, we just showed you a moment ago. Also, just some of the physical placements of some of these buttons have changed on the DP-008 versus the DP-004. The in-out button, which used to be up here somewhere on the 04, is down here on the 08. And also we have a dedicated history button on the DP-008 rather than the stop and undo combination on the DP-004. Now, there are a couple of menu changes that we'll mention when they come up, but probably the biggest improvements that we see on the DP-008 are on the rear panel. On the rear panel, we have both XLR ends as well as quarter-inch ends, which gives us access to much better quality mics, especially when you can consider that we also have a phantom switch on the front panel that sends 48 volts down your XLR cable to any condenser mic. That means you can power sophisticated condenser mics just like any major studios using these connectors right here. Just make sure that phantom is turned off if you're not using the condenser mics. That way you'll save battery power. By the way, the mic that I use in the original DP-004 footage, it's a dynamic mic which needs no power to run. Normally you just place them right in here, but if you're using condenser mic, drop them in here and use phantom. So on the whole, the main differences are the 8 tracks versus the 4 on the DP-004. We have reverb and EQ, and also the ability to EQ inputs, and a few slightly different button locations. We also have the addition of the high quality XLR inputs with phantom power, which is switched on and off from the front panel here. Some screens are slightly different, like the input settings here, but it's so close that we don't really need to get into it. But one thing I will mention is that the home button here will move you and take the focus around from the hours, frames, seconds, and minutes, so you can locate around your songs just by giving focus to that, and then move the data dial here, and that will take you straight into 7 seconds of your song. So that being said, let's go back to the main menu and record something.